All right. Well, welcome back to Reason and Theology. Wow, there's been a situation with a group of Carmelite nuns in Arlington, Texas, that was previously under the authority of Bishop Michael Olson in Fort Worth, Texas. This has been a situation that has been going on for over a year now. In fact, I've done over 10 videos in the last year on this situation, updating everybody about the status of this group of nuns and their situation in relation to the Catholic Church. Um, I've done all kinds of updates in the last year on every twist and turn. But for those who may have not seen all of those videos, just a quick summary effectively, we saw that the head of the monastery, the prioress, um, there began to be some concerning aspects to her leadership, and it was brought to the attention of the bishop. And effectively, what happened is the bishop met with the nun, and she admitted, and we verified this via audio, so we've all listened to it on this channel and know that this actually happened. She admitted to the bishop that she broke her vow of chastity in relation to some interaction with a priest from another diocese. She admitted this to the bishop and a number of others on multiple occasions. And again, we have it on audio. At that point, he went ahead and relieved her of her leadership. And right at first, they accepted that. She accepted that. The nuns at the monastery accepted that. But pretty shortly thereafter, they started to push back and said, no, we want her to be the prioress, and started to make accusations against the bishop saying, oh, this is just a land grab. This is just him being, overly authoritarian. This is just an abusive bishop. And in reality, they started making a lot of claims about the bishop, but every claim that they made, they didn't produce receipts. Whereas every claim that the bishop made in response to the allegations made against him, he produced receipts. And so it was pretty clear which side was telling the truth and which side was telling a lie. And then we saw them appeal their situation to all the way up to the Vatican, all the way up to the Pope. And in the vast majority of the appeals, the decision of the local bishop was upheld. And long story short, the Vatican upheld the notion that this prioress was to be removed, and this other new prioress that they had chosen from a different location was supposed to take over. The nuns didn't like that, and they did not want to accept it. So they rejected the local bishop's authority and his decisions, hoping that the Vatican would overturn what the bishop said. The Vatican didn't. It upheld the bishop's decisions. And at that point, they rejected what the Vatican said. And it was pretty wild because it's like, okay, if you're not going to listen to the bishop, you're not listening to the Pope, how are you Catholic? One thing about being Catholic is you're in communion with a local bishop under his authority, and he is in communion with a Pope under his authority. That's essential to being a Catholic. You can't be a Catholic if you don't have that. If you're not in communion and subject to the authority of a bishop, in communion with and under the authority of a Pope. That's absolutely essential to being Catholic. If you don't have that, you're not Catholic anymore. You're something else, but you're not Catholic. So we saw them going down this direction. It was really, really troubling. And I was kind of wondering, okay, well, what's the bishop waiting for? Is he going to excommunicate them at some point? I mean, they can't just do this forever. The new prioress was sent over there. They wouldn't let the new prioress in. So it was just very clear. Okay, well, they're rejecting the authority of the Catholic Church. What's the holdup here? Well, we finally have some news as an update here. Not good news, though. I'll share my screen and we'll go over it together. And this is likely going to be the last stream that we do on this subject because this is the end of the road. The nuns have left the Catholic Church and have joined the Society of St. Pius X. So they are no longer in communion with the Catholic Church. And hey, I know there's a lot of people out there who say, "Oh, but wait, isn't the Society of St. Pius X in communion, and weren't excommunications lifted, and weren't faculties granted?" I've been through all of that, answered all of that in great detail. I have probably 24 videos answering that. Type in SSPX on this channel, and you'll see a ton of videos answering those objections, and you'll see that they're still not in communion, still not in full communion. So take a look at those videos if you're having those questions right now. But right now, I'm assuming you already know that information and have already worked through those theological and ecclesiological issues. If you haven't, yeah, go and check those videos out. But I'm not going to reproduce that here. But I want to point out just kind of a shorthand argument here. If the Society of St. Pius X was in full communion, then you couldn't do this, because they're not under the authority of the local bishop, not under the authority of the Pope. They're going to a different group out there and going under their authority. It's not the authority that the local bishop recognizes, and it's not the authority that the Pope recognizes. So what is it? Well, it's a community outside of the Catholic Church. If SSPX was Catholic, the nuns would not be able to run to their embrace. They wouldn't be able to do that because they would be listening to the local bishop and listening to the Pope. The fact that they can run to the SSPX and be embraced by them is full proof that the SSPX is not in full communion, because if they were, their authority structure would not allow for this. This is just perfect proof they're not in full communion. So I will point that out. But I don't want to make this too much about the status of the SSPX because, again, I don't want to reinvent the wheel. But I do have to address that briefly. Well, as of today, the Society of St. Pius X posted this on their website. Statement from the Arlington Carmel on its association with SSPX. For the past several years, we've experienced much joy and spiritual renewal in the rediscovery of the riches of the immemorial liturgical tradition of the Church. In our desire to grow in holiness to an ever deeper fidelity to our discalced Carmelite charism, and as an appropriate means to better serve our Holy Mother Church, in August, following the unanimous decision of the chapter of the monastery, and with the agreement of the whole community, we completed the final steps necessary for our monastery to be associated with the Society of St. Pius X. Well, that's a contradiction in terms, right? You can't go to the SSPX in order to be more faithful to Holy Mother Church. This is actually the exact opposite. This is what Isaiah condemns as woe to those who call evil good and good evil. This is double speak. This is leaving the Catholic Church under the guise of I'm just being faithful to the Catholic Church. No, because if the SSPX was Catholic, they wouldn't allow this. They would say, no, you need to listen to the local bishop and the Holy Father who have made a decision in your particular case. So they have left the church for the SSPX, who will henceforth assure our ongoing sacramental life and governance. This is, again, why Benedict said they and their ministers exercise zero legitimate status in the church today as far as their ministry, because they're able to, illegitimately, I should say, administer sacraments to people without the necessary approbation. And yes, I'm aware that, again, validity has been granted to the SSPX as far as hearing confessions and marriages in particular cases. Validity, not necessarily liceity, though. Okay, so we are profoundly grateful to the very Reverend Father Superior General and to his delegates here in the U.S. for their paternal understanding and welcome. The motto of the SSPX was to restore all things in Christ. Such is the case for our community as well, which has prayerfully over a period of many years sought to return to the fullness of our Catholic tradition and restore all things in Christ in both our liturgical life and the way we live. Well, again, this is a contradiction in terms. Leaving the Catholic Church, not listening to the authority of your local bishop and the authority of the Pope is not Catholic tradition. It's in fact very Protestant. So again, woe to those who call good evil and evil good. We share an affinity with the Society of St. Pius X and its emphasis on training holy, dedicated priests willing to sacrifice all for Christ, which coincides with our own vocation of prayer and sacrifice at the heart of the church, pouring out our lives for the church and especially for priests. Given our formal association with the society, our triennial elections were held here at the monastery in August, presided over by a representative sent by the Superior General, Mother Teresa Agnes, who is the one who was removed because she admitted she broke her vow, was re-elected prioress for a 3-year term and confirmed an office with supplied jurisdiction from the society. We are very happy to be able to share our life of prayer and richness, the riches of the church's traditional liturgy with others. Our chapel is open to private prayer, and the faithful are welcome to join us in assisting at daily Holy Mass celebrated in Latin, according to the traditional Roman rite. And as always, in union with the whole church. I'm sorry, I can't read that without laughing. In union with the whole church, we pray for our Holy Father, Pope Francis, and Bishop Michael Olson, the Bishop of Fort Worth. Yeah, no, this is again calling good evil and evil good. This is the exact opposite of the truth. That's not in union with the whole church. If you were in union with the whole church, you would be listening to the authority of the bishop and the pope. If you're not listening to the authority and you refuse to submit to the authority of the bishop and the pope, by definition, the definition of the word schism in the Code of Canon Law is a refusal to submit to the authority of the Roman pontiff or the bishops in communion with him. By definition, you're in schism and you're automatically excommunicated according to the Code of Canon Law. And that was just recently reconfirmed in the case of Vigano, as we saw recently with his excommunication. This is not in union with the whole church. This is laughable. But this is what Satan does. He dresses in this veil and guise of piety and tradition. And in reality, it is not Catholic. It is just as schismatic as the Protestants. This is not in communion with the whole church. I can't believe they had the audacity to actually say that. Ask the Pope if they're in union with the whole church. Ask Bishop Michael Olson if they're in union with the whole church. They'll tell you no, because if they were, they would be listening to them. The fact that they can run into the arms of the SSPX shows, again, they're leaving the Catholic Church because they're going to a parallel church, a jurisdiction that is not coinciding with the authority of the hierarchy of the Catholic Church. Because if they were, they wouldn't be able to do this. They wouldn't be able to just run into the embrace of the SSPX. So this is laughable when they say that they are in union with the whole church. It says, please know that you also continue to be in our prayers, and we are most grateful for all your support, especially during the past 18 months. May God bless you and reward you. The Prioress chapter and community of the Arlington Carmel. I mean, this is just a weird case. It's like, okay, so let me get this straight. You are so dead set on being led by a woman who admits that she broke her vow of chastity. You're like so dead set on being led by this really bad leader that you are willing to break communion with the Catholic Church over it, cause massive scandal in the news, rupture the body of Christ, and then you do it under the guise of fidelity to the Catholic Church. That's evil. That's demonic. Shame on the people who support this and will continue to support it, sadly. Delusional if they think that this is Catholic. They are delusional. And the people who think this is Catholic, they need to take a step back, look in the mirror, and ask themselves, are they still Catholic? Now, I'm not saying the nuns, I'm saying the person who supports the nuns. Ask, am I still Catholic? Because it seems to me if you think this is Catholic, you've left the faith. And you need to figure out when that happened and retrace your steps and come back to the church. Well, a few days prior to this, because that was a statement from today. So we haven't yet seen what Bishop Michael Olson is going to say. But we did see something released about 7 days ago by the diocese. The real Mother Superior of this community released the following and wanted it to be read on the diocesan website. Statement to the faithful of the Diocese of Fort Worth, the 7th of September. On July 26th, Holy Mother Church liturgically commemorates Saints Joachim and Anna, parents of the Blessed Virgin Mary, who traditionally have been invoked as protectors of the Order of Carmel. On that day, His Excellency Bishop Olson addressed a letter to me in my capacity as the legitimate superior of the Carmelite Monastery of the Most Holy Trinity in Arlington, Texas. He wrote an order to support my office and the nuns of this Carmel who have been entrusted to my care by the April 18th decree of the Holy See, which is posted on the diocesan website and is available for your review. And we reviewed that here on this channel. So the Vatican appointed her prioress over and against this false, illegitimate prioress who was removed from ministry because she broke her vow of chastity, admittedly, on audio, like very clearly. Okay, so that posting is accompanied by the Holy See's letter on the same date, which explains that on January 8th of 2024, the terms of office of the prioress, and the counselors of the Arlington Carmel expired, and that as a result, the Carmel's genuine autonomy is lacking due to a total absence of lawful government. Rome's letter also notes that the Carmel's practical and verbal repeated rejection of their bishop further complicates matters. Yeah, I'll say. That's one really nice way to say, yeah, they're being schismatic. July 26th letter to me, Bishop Olson stated, as you know, the former prioress, Mother Teresa Agnes, invited the Reverend Christopher Clay and the Reverend Marshall Roberts, priests of the Diocese of Scranton, to offer the traditional Latin Mass. In a previous video, I showed some very troubling details about one of these priests. Maybe go and check the last video that we did on this subject. I'll put a link to it in the show notes. Very disturbing, some of the situation revolving one of these priests. But okay. Then it continues. Each of these priests have been prohibited for grave reasons from exercising public ministry by their bishop and by my predecessor and by me. After consulting with you about our collaboration to restore the sacramental life of the Arlington Carmel, I write to inform you that I remain willing to provide a priest of the Fraternity of St. Peter to offer the traditional Latin Mass and administer the sacraments for the nuns, provided that they meet the following requirements. So the bishop was willing to allow them to, continue to, do what they do in their religious vocation, and to provide a Latin Mass priest to them under the following conditions. The sisters publicly disassociate themselves from Vigano, who is an excommunicated schismatic, and acknowledge Pope Francis to be the vicar and successor of Peter. The sisters receive you, that is the new prioress appointed by the Vatican, and recognize you as their legitimate superior, which they didn't want to do. They wanted to hold on to this nun and prioress who broke her vow of chastity, admittedly, for some weird reason. It's like, no, I want you to govern me. That's really odd. The sisters receive me and recognize me as their bishop, Bishop Michael Olson says, and then the sisters remove the material that you have directed them to remove from the monastery's website. I ask that you convey this offer to the nuns of the Arlington Carmel as their legitimately appointed superior. It's my sincere hope that the restoration of the sacramental life of the Carmel will lead to healing of the former prioress, the nuns, and the faithful who have suffered scandal from their behavior. Yeah, I'll say. Because in addition to all this, as we saw, they also sued the bishop. And that was thrown out of court. But they then were threatening to sue him again. On the following day, July 27th, I extended to the sisters of the Arlington Carmel Bishop Olson's offer of a renewed sacramental life according to the preferred liturgical form, but with deepest sorrow, I report today that none of the sisters have made any response either to me or to their bishop. Does that sound like a group that's in full communion? You know, they were pretending to be in full communion just a moment ago on the SSPX website, pretending, and yet they won't even talk to their legitimate superior, either the prioress or the local bishop. Does that sound like in full communion? Of course not. So it says, over the past 6 weeks since they received this offer, the nuns have given no indication that they desire the gift of the sacraments, nor have they shown openness to any dialogue with us. Why? Because the SSPX has been supplying their needs, which shows you this is a parallel church. It's not the Catholic Church. If this were functioning within communion, full communion of the Catholic Church, you would not have this situation. In addition to that, they have elected to maintain upon their website certain links and statements which manifest contempt for their bishop and which obscure their claim to being in union with Rome. In light of these concerning facts, I ask you, the faithful of the Diocese of Fort Worth, to redouble your prayer. As the Vatican II clearly teaches, the Eucharist is the source and summit of our life. Pray with me. May God reward you. The wounds of Christ and Mary, Mother Mary of the Incarnation, the legitimate superior, the legitimate prioress, the one recognized by the Pope and by the local bishop. Well, this is sad. I don't think it really comes as a shock or a surprise, but it's still sad to see. Maybe this won't be the end. Maybe they'll eventually come back to communion with the Catholic Church. Maybe. Doubtful, but maybe. As I suspect, though, this will probably be the last show that we do on this situation, because I think we have some closure here, although it's not the closure that I think any of us had hoped for. So I want to move on to something else here from Pope Francis, from his return flight from Singapore. I want to talk about a number of things that he said in his in-press or in-flight press interview. He talks about a number of things: voting in the situation in America, abortion, the war in Gaza, especially some interesting stuff there with the war in Gaza. Because as I'm about to show you, what the Vatican reports is not fully what Pope Francis said. So you're about to see another instance where Vatican news doesn't fully or even accurately report what Pope Francis says, which is pretty wild, but we've seen this several times now. So we're going to take a look at that. But what I want to do is remind you first, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. And hit the like button while you're at it. Speaking of which, yesterday, I did a show on Pope Francis's very controversial claims in Singapore to a number of youth there, where he talks about all paths, all religions being paths to God. And it's like, wait, what? How is that orthodox? Sounds heretical to me. How is that consistent with John 14:6 and the dogma of outside the church there is no salvation? Is this relativism? Well, we explored that yesterday. And I pointed out how yesterday, even before I did the video, people were already downvoting it. Incredibly irrational, right? You haven't even seen the video. Hasn't even happened. And you're already downvoting it. And people were being really stupid, saying, oh, well, he's going to defend this. He defends everything the Pope says. Being incredibly dumb. Because in reality, I've criticized Pope Francis on numerous occasions. I don't defend everything he does. I defend him against false accusations, lies, and slander, But whenever there's something to criticize about him, I do, and I don't defend that. Anybody who actually gives me a fair shake knows that. But usually, what happens is you have these low IQ people who are incredibly they're like emotionally fragile beings to where you even try to get them to be reasonable when it comes to Pope Francis, and like their whole life, collapses on them. They have this meltdown and they just go off on you. And that's usually what happens anytime there is some kind of controversy with Pope Francis. And I will try to talk people off the ledge and bring them back to reality and give a fair and balanced take on what the Holy Father said. But what usually happens whenever I do those shows is I will lose a lot of subscribers. There's a lot of ridiculous people out there who actually think that I gain subscribers by defending the Pope. That's never been the case. I've always been well aware that I lose subscribers when I defend him against lies and slander. It's always been something where I lose. And, it is what it is. I think it's the right thing to do. So I'm going to do it even if I lose subscribers. That's usually what happens, though. I usually lose subscribers. I don't usually gain. Wildly enough, though, yesterday I actually gained subscribers, which is weird. It's like, wait, how in the world did this happen? I think what's going on is some people are really waking up to the fact that they have been lied to for so long by Catholics and non-Catholics about Pope Francis. And they're looking for a balanced take. And whenever they saw, hey, I gave a balanced take, I put things in perspective, but I also criticized the Holy Father at the end of the day for what he said. I think people appreciated that, came to their senses and wanted to support that. And that's awesome. On the other hand, there were still that group of people who were saying, Michael, I can't believe you're defending this. They're literally saying that on the very video where I'm not defending what he said. I'm actually criticizing it. That's how irrational some of these people are. And some of them got so emotionally unstable by the very fact that I just had a video on the topic without even watching it. They were just going off on me. You'll defend anything. And it's like, you clearly didn't watch the video. What is wrong with you? Are you that emotionally fragile that anything that challenges your paradigm makes you behave this irrationally? It's a fascinating phenomenon. I think that somebody needs to study this sociologically and do some kind of test on these people, figure out what's going on there. Maybe it'll help me to communicate to them better. But I was pretty encouraged to see that I actually didn't lose subscribers. I gained a fair amount from that video. So maybe the tide is turning. Maybe people who are being serious about their faith are just kind of tired of the Pope bashing, the lies, the slander, and they're looking for something more balanced, more rational, more fair, more accurate, more intelligent. Well, if that's you, you came to the right place. Hit that subscribe button. Now, let's go ahead and talk about this situation with Pope Francis and the voting. Now, going to share my screen. Should be able to see it right around now. This is what he said on his way back from Singapore to Rome. Now, I found this fascinating because it's exactly what I have been telling people concerning the situation between Trump and Harris. I've been saying, look, you have to vote for the lesser of the two evils. And you can't just say, oh, I'm just not going to vote. No, you need to vote. Because by not voting, the greater of the two evils is given an advantage. So, here is what he says. In political morality, it is generally said that not voting is ugly. It's not good. He says one must vote. So notice that you can't take the position of, I in good conscience can't vote. Well, if that's your position, you need to better form your conscience. It's like people saying, in good conscience, I need to use contraception in my marriage. It's like, you need to better form your conscience. You can't appeal to the conscience thing any more than somebody can say, well, in good conscience, I have to have an abortion. Yeah, it doesn't work that way. Your conscience has to be formed by the faith. So, yeah. You can't just say, I'm not going to vote. He says, one must vote. Because if you don't vote, if you don't act, you are now actually giving more of a chance to the greater of the two evils to come to power. He says, one must vote and one must choose the lesser evil. There it is. There's often going to be a situation where neither candidate is ideal. And that's certainly the case here. Neither one of them really uphold the Catholic faith or Christian morality, neither Trump nor Harris. Maybe one's a little better than the other, but neither of them are ideal. Neither of them are where they need to be. They're not my first choice, either one of them. But I do think that one is more removed from morality and the faith and Christian standards than another. So you vote for the lesser of the two evils. He says, that lady or that gentleman, I don't know. Each person must think and decide according to their own conscience. Sure. But I think it's pretty clear, if you're aware of the situation, which one is the lesser of the two evils. I found this fascinating because, again, it flies in the face of what so many people are saying today. I had some people mocking me in the comment section saying, Michael, you don't know what you're talking about. You don't know Catholic morality. You can't vote for either of them. It's a sin to vote for either. It's like, yeah, no, that's actually not what Catholic morality teaches. But here we go. Pope Francis is saying the same thing. So are we going to say Pope Francis doesn't know what he's talking about? Well, sadly enough, there's going to be some Catholics who say that, but are they really Catholic at this point? That's the question they really need to be asking. All right, so there's that situation. There's also some comments that he made about abortion, which are pretty fascinating. And by the way, thank you for that super chat, Matthew Schmidt. He says Trump is the lesser of the two evils. Mm-hmm. Both are evil, but I think one is lesser of the two evils. Here he says about abortion, science says that at 1 month after conception, all the organs of a human being are present. Everything. Having an abortion is killing a human being. Whether you like the word or not, it's murder. Good for him. Good for him for speaking the truth and saying that and being blunt about it. It is murder. The church is not closed-minded because it forbids abortion. The church forbids abortion because it kills. It's murder. It is murder. Now, in this situation with Trump and Harris, both are not anti-abortion. Trump wants abortion in the case of certain exceptions, and he wants more than 6 weeks. That's not Christian. That's not Christian. But it's the lesser of the two evils compared to Harris that wants a lot more than that and is ultimately pushing for a situation where you could have abortions up into birth and maybe in some rare cases after birth, which in that case it's no longer abortion, it's just plain old murder. Obviously it's murder even prior, but even in everyone else's definition who doesn't accept that definition for abortion and abortion being murder, I think everyone knows you kill a baby outside of the womb, that's very clearly murder. And there have been videos circulating online showing that that is the case. Situations where during an abortion procedure, the baby is accidentally born. What do they do with it? They put it to the side, make it comfortable, while they then decide, a couple doctors and the parent, the mother, usually it's only the mother, it's never the father, right? The fathers have no rights, unfortunately. They will then decide whether it lives or dies. We have them admitting to that on camera. So don't let people gaslight you and say otherwise. Okay, so we have that situation going on, but then he also says this, and we need to be clear about this: sending migrants away, not allowing them to grow, not allowing them to have life is something wrong. It's cruelty. Now, again, Pope francis says in some cases you might need to send them away, but give them a chance. If you need to send some of them back, you send some of them back. Send some of them back. And he also says, look, each nation needs to determine for itself whether or not it can take people in, because it obviously has a duty to its current citizens. And so if it doesn't have the resources, it has to consider that as well. So Pope Francis is aware of that. He takes that position. He makes those qualifications. He says, sending a child away from the womb of the mother is murder because there is life, and we must speak clearly about these things. No, but however, both things are clear: the orphan, the stranger, and the widow. Do not forget this. That's a reference to Scripture's emphasis on those three things. Okay, so we have that. But then we have this really fascinating case with some of the comments that he makes about the situation in Gaza, with the war there between Israel and Hamas. And it was a little discouraging, to be honest, to read this from the Pope. And maybe that's the point. Maybe that's why the Vatican news tried to hide what the Pope said, but it did just that. It hid what the Pope actually said. I'm going to show that to you. Before I do that, though, I want to remind you, hit that subscribe button if you're just now tuning in. Hey, thank you so much for tuning in to this channel. I got plenty of resources here for you. If you are interested in what's going on in the Catholic Church, check out the Catholic Controversies playlist. But I will ask you, hit that subscribe button because it helps me grow this channel. And if you've been watching the channel for a while and you've been benefiting from it, go ahead and do that as well. All right, let me share my screen and show you what's going on here. I don't think people have picked up on this, that Vatican News attempted to censor Pope Francis. Weird, but it's not the first time. It's odd, though. Okay, so Pope Francis is talking about this situation in Gaza. And this is supposed to be a transcript. And notice what he says. And I want to say something. This might be a bit of me getting involved in politics. I am very, very grateful to the King of Jordan. He's a man of peace. King Abdullah is a good man. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I want to say something. This may be getting me involved in politics. Hey, this is a nice guy. That doesn't read well, does it? You know why? Because they left something out. They deliberately took something out. But I kind of understand why. I don't think it's the right thing, but I kind of understand why. Let me show you what they took out. So I had previously seen this version of the interview prior to Vatican News. I saw this one put out by Crux, who had a correspondent, senior correspondent, on that flight, I believe. So they give a breakdown of what he says. Here's the bit they left out. In terms of peace efforts, the Pope says, I am sorry to say that, but I don't think there are steps forward towards peace. And then he says of King Abdullah, he is a man of peace. He's trying to make peace. He's a good and nice man. This whole bit was just deleted by the Vatican. It's pretty wild. But I kind of understand. I don't think it's right, but I kind of understand. Because that's a really depressing statement. And I'm kind of shocked the Pope actually said that. I'm not saying he's wrong, but when Pope Francis feels that there are no steps towards peace possible in the situation in the Middle East, that's discouraging. Pope Francis is always very optimistic, really optimistic. And even he's saying, yeah, I don't think that there's any path forward here. Oh, what do you say to that? I'm not saying he's wrong. Maybe that is the case. But gosh, that hit me like a ton of bricks because I don't want to hear that. I want peace. I think most rational people want peace. Now, how do we go about bringing that peace is going to be debatable, but I think most of us want peace. And if you don't, there's something wrong with you. But for him to say that, oh man, that just didn't sit well with me. And so I kind of understand why the Vatican News just said, let's maybe not put that in there. But, you know, I don't think it's right to censor the Pope like that. And then you have to ask the question, okay, how often are they doing that now? Because I've caught a few already and I wasn't looking for it, but I've picked up on it. And if I'm not looking for it and I pick up on it, then that tells me it's happening more times than it shouldn't, or more times than it should, I should say. But man, that's just so sad. He says, I don't think there are steps forward towards peace. He says, I'm sorry to say that. Now, maybe what he meant by this is he doesn't believe that they are currently taking those steps. Maybe that's what he meant. Or he's just saying, look, period. End of story. I don't think that there is a way towards peace here. Little ambiguous. Let's maybe hope it's the former and not the latter. But whenever the Pope, who is an outrageous, optimistic optimist, um, always optimistic. If you can't tell, I'm a pessimist. So, when he's always that way, and even he's saying this, it's like, man, that's not good. I don't know. So that was a little discouraging to see. Anyways, I want to remind you all of something. I want to go to this real quick. Let me go to the website. I have a course coming up with Catholic Polytechnic. This is my second course that I'm teaching for a magisterial studies certificate program as an associate professor, adjunct professor with the university. I will start this class on September 30th through December 7th. It will be on Mondays, 7:30 to 8:45. If you can't attend them live, I will record the lectures and make them available for all the students. So if you can't make it live, you still can participate and watch the material the day after. Now, this is going to be a historical overview of magisterial interventions. So the Catholic magisterium in 2,000 years of church history, which is a tall order, right? Especially for only 10 lectures. It's a lot of ground to cover. So I'm going to go over all 21 ecumenical councils. And then I'm going to go over some significant papal interventions for 3 lectures. And then I'm going to talk about some important local councils. So we're going to talk about some of the most noteworthy instances of magisterial teachings and interventions in the last 2,000 years. It'll give you a really, really good basis for what all the magisterium has said on really important topics. So 10 lectures on that, starting September 30th with catholicpolytechnic.org. So if you're interested in signing up, catholicpolytechnic.org, go to the website and just click on certificate over here at the corner. And it has, if you scroll towards the bottom, a sign up registration page over here. And it's $350 for the entire course. Now, this is the second of 3 courses for the Magisterial Studies Certificate Program. So if you're interested in the whole program, let me know and I can just contact me and I can let you know how to take that first course as well if you already haven't taken it. So yeah, definitely check it out. There is a sign up page here. Consider that. Starts September 30th. So you want to sign up a few days prior to that. You got a little time. Right now we're September 14th. So you got a little bit, but a couple days before then, they will shut off the function of signing up. So go ahead and sign up as soon as possible if you're interested in that. Well, everybody, thank you all so much for watching. I hope this material was helpful to you. If it was, let me know. Put your comments there in the comment section. Or if it wasn't helpful, or if you don't agree, put that in the comment section too. I want to hear from you as well. I want to hear your feedback. Just be respectful, and I'd love to hear from you. Make sure to hit that like button. Make sure to hit the subscribe button. And if you want to support this channel and also get access to extra content that I have for patrons only, a great way to support it is patreon.com/reason and theology, or you can become a channel member like right here on YouTube. There should be an option for you to sign up and become a channel member right below. It should be the join button. You can go and join at any participation level. You'll get access to plenty of extra content there. All right. I'll see y'all either tomorrow or the next day. Not sure if I'm going to do a show tomorrow. We'll see. But if not, Monday. All right. God bless.